Alright, hey everybody, let's try this again. And welcome back to my channel. Today, as promised, I'm going to read chapter 1 from this book right here. So, without further ado, let's get into it because it's juicy. Well, wait, let me pause. This chapter is going to set the foundation for the rest of the book and literally reality as we know it. It's Metaphysics 101 crash course, I would say. So, if you feel like you need to pause this video because it is a lot of information, do so in order to, take notes or just digest the information because it's a lot. And please forgive me for butchering any names. I might just abbreviate names because some of these professors, I don't speak Russian and I don't speak German, and I cannot, for the life of me, pronounce their names. So, please bear with me. Without further ado, let's dive in. Chapter 1. The biggest need to know. The world is full of people who have never, since childhood, met an open doorway with an open mind. E.B. White. Once upon a time in a land called forever. Once upon a no time in a land called forever. There was only awareness and awareness of itself. All possibility and all potential waiting to manifest. There was no form, only the potential imagination of form of every possible kind. This was the infinite state of pure awareness from which all that we think we see has ultimately come. That opening paragraph captures so many common themes encoded in the narratives and symbolism of religion and the myths, legends, and accounts of native and ancient peoples the world over. They further include the story of how a negative or evil force emerged to challenge the omnipotence of the original creative force. From this appeared the universal theme of God versus the devil, or Satan, and endless other names awarded to this source of chaos, upheaval, and manipulation. Most people can't see the commonalities amid the apparent confusion of different religions, names, cultures, and emphasis. But if you can see past the differing detail, the same basic story is in plain sight. This is only possible, however, if you can expand perception beyond the dots and see themes and connections that then come clearly into view. Followers and advocates of religions and storytellers among native peoples continue to use the language of the ancient originators, and this can obscure the fact that what is being described can today be expressed in the language of science and computation. They will talk of the Father and the Son, for example, when these were only the terms used to describe massive, though ultimately simple, concepts in a way that those of the time could grasp. What is the point of talking about quantum physics and quantum computers to people still knocking rocks together? Storytellers and carriers of the knowledge obviously used contemporary terms and symbols to get their point across, and this was true of all religions and forms of worship. This was fine and essential then, but the narrative needs to move on. Knowledge of the hidden realms of quantum mechanics and so much else has expanded dramatically, while religions and native peoples, with honorable exceptions, continue to use the language of another age. An update is urgently required, and that is one aim of this book. We will see that, number 1, themes of religions and native cultures are basically correct. Emphasis often on the basically. Number 2, most accounts have become so inverted and distorted from the original that billions today are following and worshiping the very opposite of what they think they are. Number 3, we should not be worshiping anybody or anything when we are the anybody/everybody and anything/everything. To show this to be true requires a total re-evaluation of what we call reality, the world we think we see, and with which we think we basically interact. Excuse my wife, she's in the background. If you can hear, I don't know if this mic can pick her up. Anyways, I have called this opening chapter, The Biggest Need to Know, because without this knowledge, nothing else can make any sense, and its suppression has ensured that generation after generation and culture upon culture complete entire lifetimes while never answering the basic questions of, who am I? Where am I? What am I doing here? There's a fundamental secret behind why the answers have been kept from us, and when that veil is lifted, human society, ancient and modern, morphs into crystal clarity. It is indeed a case of everything you need to know but have never been told. Systematically imposed ignorance entraps humanity in perceptual servitude and allows the tiny few to control the very many. If we are to free ourselves from this tyranny, the veil of perceptual illusion must first be lifted. Reality check. The scale of illusion is staggering. Ask all but a relative few if they live in a solid, physical world, and they will look at you in blank bewilderment for even posing the question. Of course we do. Don't be silly. But actually, we don't. No, we don't. Consider that for a moment. Every morning we experience our solid body getting out of a solid bed to eat our solid breakfast and head through solid streets and solid vehicles to go to a solid work or solid wherever. But all the time, there is no solid. As illusions go, they don't get any more extreme. I chuckle when I hear the fake news mainstream media dismissing other versions of events as conspiracy theories and too far-fetched to believe, while reporting the world from the perspective that everything is solid when it isn't. The self-delusion is monumental because so is the scale of perception programming. Key word there, programming. I have been labeled mad and insane for nearly 30 years by mainstream society, especially the media, on the basis of that very self-delusion. Many of the things I say are happening would not be possible if reality was physical and solid, but it's not. Those who dismiss and ridicule what I say are coming from a perception of solidity and have no idea what the world really is. Hardly surprising, then, that they say I'm crazy. We are told that our solid material reality is made of atoms and that everything is solid and physical because of them. But hold on. Atoms have no solidity, and so cannot a solid world make. Figure 5, for example. How can atoms with no solidity create a solid world? Atoms are said to have a nucleus orbited by electrons in a relationship akin to many solar systems, and everything else is empty space. How can this make a solid world? I contend that the nucleus and electrons have no solidity either, and that even their material existence is illusory, although quantum physics gives them marginal materiality. Here's a quote to put that marginal into context. If the nucleus were the size of a peanut, the atom would be about the size of a baseball stadium. If we lost all the dead space inside our atoms, we would each be able to fit into a particle of dust, and the entire human race would fit into the volume of a sugar cube. Crazy. Makes that racism deal look a bit ridiculous, huh? Quantum physics says that 99.99999% and more of what is called ordinary matter is empty space. In fact, space, another illusion, is not actually empty, but bursting with energy that we can't see. There is space, or energy, that we can see, and we call this reality. And there is space, aka energy, that we cannot see, and we call this empty. Human sight is verging on the blind when you compare what we can see with what we can't see. Almost the entirety of infinite existence is denied to us while we are perceptually enslaved in a tiny band of frequency that science calls visible light. If you can see this picture. But it's going to be kind of hard, so bear with me. The electromagnetic spectrum is only 0.005% of what exists in the universe in terms of energy and what is referred to as matter. Some say it's a bit more, but not much. Think about that. Just 0.005%. Now contemplate this. Humans can only see a tiny fraction of that 0.005% in the band of visible light. I don't know if you can see these diagrams and whatnot. They're just illustrating what he's describing right now. Most of the rest is called dark energy and dark matter by mainstream physics. I don't buy their version of what this dark really is, and I use the term only in the sense of it being unseen by human sight senses. People say that this or that is not possible, and this or that is crazy, while virtually 100% of what exists in infinite forever is not visible to them. A little humility is urgently required. Given that mainstream science, quantum physics apart, will largely not explore beyond the seen and what is considered to be the tangible, it becomes clear why its concrete conclusions have proved to be so inaccurate and often ridiculous. Yet the same science is perceived and promoted today by its bewildered advocates and believers as the arbiter of all knowledge. This is extraordinary on the face of it, but then not so much when you see the whys and wherefores of the global perception deception. The illusion is so deep that we have never even touched anything in the way that we think we have. Oh, but you are holding a book, right? No, you are holding an electromagnetic field of information, aka the book, with electric magnetic fields of information, aka your hands. The experience of touch is the connection between different electromagnetic fields. The experience of apparent solidity is really electromagnetic resistance between energetic fields of different frequencies or densities. You who are not solid can't walk through a wall which is not solid because of electromagnetic resistance, and not physical resistance because there is no physical. This all sounds so fantastic and unbelievable to the human conscious mind, but it's true. We don't hear anything until the brain has decoded electrical communications from our ears. The ears don't hear, the brain does. The same applies with sight, taste, and smell. A falling tree makes no noise unless someone is there to decode vibrational disturbances triggered in the air into electrical signals that the brain then decodes into the sound we recognize as a falling tree. Otherwise, the tree falls in silence. We hear human speech only when vibrational information fields generated by the vocal cords are decoded by the brain. Modern pain relief techniques involve blocking messages from the point of pain from reaching the brain because until that communication is made, you can feel no discomfort. It's the brain that says, ouch, not the point of impact. The entire world that we think we see in the form that we think we see it only exists in a few cubic centimeters at the back of the brain where visual reality is decoded. Remember that human society is founded on the physical world being real, tangible, and solid. And this delusion is driving the perceptions and decisions of politics, medicine, media, corporations, and science, quantum physics apart. The whole shebang, in fact. Everything is based on the most basic misunderstanding of our very reality, and in the shadows beyond the realm of the seen, this is all by design. Those at the cutting edge of mainstream science are proving experimentally that physicality is an illusion as genuine scientists and seekers of truth break free from Stone Age orthodoxy. Here's a telling quote from artist and filmmaker Sergio Toporek. Consider that you can see less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum and hear less than 1% of the acoustic spectrum. 90% of the cells in your body carry their own microbial DNA and are not you. The atoms in your body are 99.999999999% empty space, and none of them are the ones you were born with. Human beings have 46 chromosomes, 2 less than a potato. The existence of the rainbow depends on the conical photoreceptors in your eyes. To animals without cones, the rainbow does not exist. So you don't just look at a rainbow, you create it. This is pretty amazing, especially considering that all the beautiful colors you see represent less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. And this is from Science Magazine, Wonderpedia. Every second, 11 million sensations crackle along these brain pathways. The brain is confronted with an alarming array of images, sounds, and smells, which it rigorously filters down until it is left with a manageable list of around 40. Thus, 40 sensations per second make up what we perceive as reality. 40 out of 11 million per second. We should let that sink in for a moment. Our reality, which seems so real, is constructed every second from 40 snapshots of information or sensations from a potential 11 million. The other 10,900,060 are absorbed by our subconscious mind while we remain consciously oblivious to their existence. Quantum physics explores the hidden realms beyond the seen and has demolished the material solid clockwork model of reality peddled for so long by mainstream science. Cutting-edge quantum physicists have more in common in their explanation of reality with ancient seers and shamans than their conventional colleagues in closet-minded academia. Quantum physics to the scientific mainstream is at best an irritant and at worst a catastrophe to their world is solid mindset, which dominates and infests the institutions of human society. So much so that even with quantum revelations about illusory physicality, the rest of science largely cracks on as if nothing has changed. Oh, but it has, and fundamentally. Scientific orthodoxy is either being left behind and becoming an irrelevance or being forced, in an act of survival, to think the previously unthinkable. That they were wrong all along and have caused generations galore to be equally wrong by falling for the trap that because people have passed exams and have letters after their names, they must, by definition, know what they are talking about. History constantly tells us otherwise. Terms like professor and teacher are titles awarded by the state for serving the belief system of the state. They are not a confirmation of intelligence and certainly not of awareness beyond intellectual myopia and the download of academic convention. That is not to say that you can't be an intelligent professor or teacher, only that it is clearly not a requirement of the job. As a real scientist, Nikola Tesla said long ago, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of our existence." This is proving to be the case, although progress is not what you discover, but what you do with it. Our solid world cannot be more unsolid, and here's the kicker. Governments, science, medicine, corporations, education, and media, what I call collectively the mainstream everything, I call it the Matrix, all produce their decisions, laws, explanations of reality, treatments, and reports on the basis that it is solid, material, and physical. No wonder that human society is such a basket case. If your whole perception and decision-making is founded on a belief in reality that could not possibly be more wrong, then how could that not produce extremes of madness? Almost the entirety of human life is skewed wherever you look because of this most basic misconception about the very reality we are experiencing. This inversion and perversion of perceived reality has produced the inversion and perversion that we call human society. Author Michael Elmer put it so well. Just look at us. Everything is backwards. Everything is upside down. Doctors destroy health, lawyers destroy justice, universities destroy knowledge, governments destroy freedom, the major media destroy information, and religions destroy spirituality. What's more, none of that is by chance, and all is by calculated design. The why and by whom will become clear. The all that is. We are awareness, a state of being aware, a state of being aware. Everything else is detail and illusion. We are not our body. We are that which is aware and experiencing through the body. Awareness in the purest sense has no form, but it can experience through form. In its most expanded state, it is not even energy. It just is. Our awareness is an expression of the totality of awareness. Hence, some religions and native peoples speak of being aspects or children of God, or the Great Spirit. Other religions condemn as blasphemy any claim that we are God, what I call infinite awareness, in its endless and various forms. This serves a manufactured and enslaving belief that we are insignificant, detached, isolated, and powerless. None of this is true at the deepest of levels, but it serves the agenda of human control by peddling an acceptance of impotence, servitude, and know your place. The late great English-born philosopher Alan Watts was right when he said, "God is what no one admits to being, and everyone is." Religious frocks are symbols of this manipulated sense of detachment and isolation, as they stand as sentinels between believers and the perceived deity. They know God better than you do. And the Pope, Rabbi, Imam are his best mates. What breathtaking nonsense it all is. We are points of attention with an infinite awareness, as infinite awareness infinitely experiencing itself. Let me read that again. We're points of attention with an infinite awareness, as infinite awareness infinitely experiences itself. This doesn't mean that every point is infinitely aware. If you stand on a mountain, you can see a great panorama, but if you stand in a pitch-black room, you can see nothing. Both are points of attention, awareness, and yet their perception of reality is dramatically different. So it is with the human mind and infinite awareness in its totality, or, in current human terms, even vastly less than its totality. Human consciousness is so asleep, so imprisoned by illusion, it is hardly conscious at all. The droplet is the ocean, and the ocean is the droplet. But not every droplet is as aware as the ocean if they become perceptually isolated from the whole. Let's see if we can see these. Figure 11. Humans are a point of attention within infinite awareness within a tiny band of frequency called visible light. The ocean is the droplet is the ocean. Where does the droplet end and the ocean start? They are one, and so is human awareness, no matter what the background, color, or creed it perceives itself to be. Words like infinite and totality are themselves a misnomer for awareness beyond time and space, or our perceptions of them, but they serve a purpose to contrast with human perceptual myopia. Infinite awareness just is, period. It is an isness, a state of awareness that knows all and sees all because it is all. The range of potential states of awareness, therefore, span all possibility from infinite awareness in awareness of itself to someone who thinks she's just Mary or Margaret working on the checkout. Humanity is big time at the lower end collectively of this perceptual scale, but equally big time, we don't have to be. I have taken psychoactive potions twice on 2 nights in the rainforest of Brazil in 2003 in the form of a plant called Ayahuasca, which tastes a bit like licorice. On the second night in particular, after I entered an altered state, I spent 5 timeless hours lying in the darkness as a strong, loud voice, taking a female form, spoke to me in detail about the illusory nature of physical reality. It was an extraordinary experience which I remembered in photographic detail. The voice said at the start, "All you really need to know is infinite love is the only truth. Everything else is illusion." These words were repeated several times. Infinite love, or infinite awareness in awareness of itself, is the only truth. Everything else is illusion. The voice said that I was being taken to where I came from and to where I would return, so I could better understand my current reality. In that moment, I saw a shimmering, radiant blackness of stillness and silence that somehow shone with incredible brilliance. What was that again? A shimmering, radiant blackness that shone with the brilliance of light? Words do not exist to describe what appears to be a bewildering contradiction to the human conscious mind. Once again, the isolated conscious mind in the thrall of the five senses believes that something must move, take form, or make noise to be real. But all these things are simply possibilities manifesting from the infinite imagination of infinite possibility. Speak, and you pull one possibility from all possibility. In the beginning was the Word, right? Stop speaking, and your spoken possibility disappears back into the silence of all possibility. Realities which move, take form, and make noise are figments of infinite imagination, which manifest as realms of frequency and vibration that interpenetrate each other like radio and television stations at different points of the frequency dial. As the voice said, if it vibrates, it's illusion. These realities share the same space and don't interfere with each other unless they are very close on the dial. When this happens, we call the result ghosts and paranormal activity. Ghosts and apparitions can pass through walls because they are not operating within the same frequency band, just as radio frequencies can pass through walls. I am far from the only one to have experienced this infinite awareness as a vibrant, shining blackness. Many have described the same experience to me over the years, and human ages and sages of illusory time have known of this indescribable, not place, but state of awareness or being. Near-death experiences are a great source of information about the unseen, as they tell of entering a totally different realm of reality after their consciousness, point of attention, withdraws from the body at death, only to return to this reality when the body is revived. Here's a picture, let's see if you can see it. Near-death experience, when our point of attention withdraws from the focus and lens of body/mind, and expands into a vastly greater sense of reality. Dr. Ezra Alexander, an academic neurosurgeon at Harvard for 15 years, is one such example with his near-death experience during a week-long coma in 2008. He went into the coma caused by meningitis, believing, like his scientist father, that consciousness exists only in the brain and cannot continue when the brain has ceased to function. Put bluntly, dead means dead. This is the very foundation of mainstream scientific dogma they call evolution that leads deeply bewildered academics like Professor Richard Dawkins at Oxford University to trash any idea of awareness beyond the grave. The deadly duo of arrogance and ignorance that entrap the concrete mind of five-sense academia means that not only do they go on their clueless way, but they insist that everyone else does the same. Dawkins said, "You cannot be both sane and well-educated and disbelieve in evolution. The evidence is so strong that any sane, educated person has got to believe in evolution." Or, put another way, you cannot be both sane and well-educated if you don't believe what I do. The arrogance of ignorance defined in a single sentence. Serbian-American scientist Nikola Tesla, who was way ahead of the science mainstream, hit the button when he said, "The scientists of today think deeply instead of clearly. One must be sane to think clearly, but one can think deeply and be quite insane." This was the world of Ezra Alexander, until he opened his eyes from his coma with news of a completely different reality, an explanation of life itself. He tells a story in his book, Proof of Heaven, in which he writes about the core, or dazzling darkness, from where the purest love emanated and all is known. This is what I experienced in the rainforest of Brazil, and dazzling darkness is a perfect description of what I saw. The purest love emanated and all was known, further describes what I call infinite awareness in awareness of itself. All-knowing, all possibility, all potential. Tesla also talked of the core from which everything comes. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but I know it exists. Ancient and native cultures the world over have their own names for this force that gives life to everything. Lakota people in the United States speak of Wakantanka, or the force which moves all things. This is a wonderful description of the all that is. Great Spirit is another. You can liken infinite awareness to an infinite ocean of infinite possibility. We give names to different oceans like the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian, but they are all the same body of water. We give names to people, countries, cultures, trees, mountains, air, rain, planets, stars, and galaxies, but they are all the same ocean of infinite awareness in different manifestations. Everything is one infinite awareness having different experiences, the force that moves all things. Once we become disconnected from the influence of expanded realms of this awareness, our sense of isolation and apartness from everything else leads to a self-identity with name, race, culture, religion, job, lifestyle, and life story. These are not who we are. Only what we are currently experiencing. They are an experience, not an I. This is the self-identity that I call phantom self, and it is the foundation of human misery, emotional trauma, and control. The fake self-identity that holds humanity in servitude to illusion, the phantom self. The late singer and songwriter Leonard Cohen said, "If you don't become the ocean, you'll be seasick all your life. If you don't become one with infinite awareness, you'll only perceive a little isolated me, powerless in the face of forces and events you cannot control." Oh, but you can. Near-death experiencers galore have described realities outside the perceptual prison of the body in extremely common terms. One said, "It's like being half asleep when I was alive and totally awake after I was pronounced dead." Anita Moorjani, author of Dying to Be Me, said after her own out-of-body experience, "When we are not expressing in our physical body, you and I and all of us, we are expressions of the same consciousness." This has been a theme of enlightened people throughout the ages, and quantum physics is now beginning to catch on and catch up. Anita said that in her out-of-body state of awareness, she experienced a realm of clarity where I understood everything, and I felt connected to everybody. She was experiencing the force that moves all things, the force, and connects everything as one. That is where the force in Star Wars came from, BTW. Anita makes a very potent in/out of the body analogy of a torch beam in a warehouse. Imagine you are in a pitch-black warehouse with a torch in your hand. All you can see is anything within the beam of the torch. Everything else is invisible or hidden. This is symbolic of the tiny range of frequency, or visible light, that the human body can decode and we can therefore see. Then, symbolic of awareness withdrawing from the body, someone turns on the lights right across the warehouse. Now you can see the enormity of what you were part of all along, but could not see when your perceptions were limited to the light of just the torch. I have just described what happens as death. You know, that inevitability that terrifies most of the human race? Body-mind decodes visual reality only within the tiny frequency band of visible light, and when our awareness withdraws from the body, it withdraws from that telescope focus, and suddenly perception massively expands. There is no death of awareness, only the end of its temporary vehicle for a particular experience. Fear of death is only the ignorance of life. Or, as Rumi, a 13th century Sufi mystic, said, "This place is a dream. Only a sleeper considers it real. Then death comes like dawn, and you wake up laughing at what you thought was your grief. This place is only a tiny band of frequency, while forever lies beyond its perceptual walls. I will be exposing at length the architects of those walls, or firewalls as they really are. I have used the following quote from a near-death experiencer several times in my books because it is such an encapsulation of reality outside the body. Here's the quote. "Everything from the beginning, my birth, my ancestors, my children, my wife, everything comes together simultaneously. I saw everything about me and about everyone who was around me. I saw everything they were thinking now, what they thought then, what was happening before, what was happening now. There is no time. There is no sequence of events, no such thing as limitation of distance, of period, of place. I could be anywhere I wanted to be simultaneously. And this comes from academic neurosurgeon Ezra Alexander. To experience thinking outside the brain is to enter a world of instantaneous connections that make ordinary thinking, those aspects limited by the physical brain and the speed of light, seem like some hopelessly sleepy and plodding event. Our truest, deepest self is completely free. It is not crippled or compromised by past actions or concerned with identity or status. It comprehends that it has no need to fear the earthly world, and therefore, it has no need to build itself up through fame or wealth or conquest. This is the reality of life outside the body, and there is a force that has sought, mostly very successfully, to keep this from us and imprison our perception in a sense of limitation. I can't, and that's not possible. There is so much more to humanity than we have ever understood, and what testament to the scale of illusion that so many have been killed, tortured, and burned at the stake for revealing this truth or parts of it. The whole foundation of human control can be described in a single sentence. Disconnecting the incarnate human mind, what I will call body mind, from the influence of our infinite self, or disconnecting the incarnate droplet from the ocean. Disconnecting the droplet from the ocean, 5 sense mind from infinite awareness. The bottom line of human enslavement. Everything comes from this, and without such disconnection, the depth and scale of human perceptual control would be impossible. We will see as we progress how the very fine detail of human society is structured to take that symbolic mountain panorama and lock it away in the pitch black room. Humanity is imprisoned by its sense of reality, which comes from its point of attention. If our attention can be focused only in the 5 senses, we cease to be influenced in our perception of reality by our expanded levels of awareness beyond the illusion. Awake philosopher Alan Watts said that the ego, or body-mind, is nothing other than the focus of attention. This is exactly what it is, and so what more potent form of perceptual control could there be than to focus attention, sense of reality, only in that tiny sliver of frequency called visible light? Imagine all the people and everything else. The still and silent all that is produces what is called creation through the imagination of its points of attention, large and small, aka us, humans, plants, animals, etc. This can be anything from creating entire worlds to doodling in a notebook. There can be error too in such creations. Witness the creation of the atomic bomb. The all that is can be capable of error, not in its purest and most expanded expression, but its points of attention can. Even then, what is error except another form of experience, and what is experience except the road to wisdom and remembering our true identity? How often do our biggest mistakes turn out to be our biggest gifts? Our greatest gifts. According to ancient accounts, which concur with my own research and conclusions, our very current reality was the result of error, and I'll be explaining much more about this in due course. We should also not forget that if we are talking about a state of all possibility, then error is a possibility, and without this, there cannot be a state of all possibility. In the same way, all possibility means that the all that is, or infinite awareness, is everything and nothing, everywhere and nowhere. It is and it isn't. This has to be the case, or it would not be all possibility or infinite imagination. So everything is within nothing, no thing, and no thing is within everything. Nowhere is within everywhere, and everywhere is within nowhere. It's like reading Alice in Wonderland. Once we grasp the nature of all possibility and infinite imagination, in the fullness of its meaning, all paradox disappears. Infinite awareness is not energy, but produces energy as an imagination of all possibility. Creations of infinite imagination and the imaginations of its imagination can manifest as the realms of what we call energy, frequency, and vibration. The further these imagined creations themselves create and become detached from a state of infinite awareness and awareness of itself, the more they fall into ever lower frequencies and so states of illusion, or fall in density. If they fall far enough, they end up in the energetic densities that we call matter. Legendary American comedian Bill Hicks, who had countless experiences in psychoactive drug-induced altered states, said, "All matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration. We are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There is no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we are the imagination of ourselves." This is what the illusion of physical matter really is. Energy vibrating so slowly that it gives the appearance of solidity. Scientists don't come much more famous than Albert Einstein, and yet he said the same as a comedy club comedian. To know does not require some great formal education, aka programming. It means simply to know. Claircognizance, much. Mainstream education is structured to stop us knowing by enslaving our perceptions of the possible, and it is no coincidence that Einstein also said, "The only thing that interferes with my learning is my education." Einstein's explanation of matter was the same as Bill Hicks. Concerning matter, we have been all wrong. What we have called matter is really energy, whose vibration has been lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. There is only light and sound. There is only light, aka energy, and sound, aka vibration, which together give the illusion of physicality when the vibration is slow enough and within the frequency band of visible light, aka visible energy. The slower energy vibrates, the more solid it appears to be, say a wall, and the faster it vibrates, the less dense and even ethereal it appears to be. If it vibrates fast enough to breach the frequency band of visible light, then we can't see it. When people talk of seeing something appear out of nowhere or disappear before my eyes, they are describing a phenomena that enter the frequency band of visible light and then change frequency to go beyond it. Now you see it, now you don't. Now you decode it, now you don't. Academics dismiss such descriptions with regard to UFOs and aliens appearing and disappearing because they don't understand what reality is at its core. Those more aware of how energy interacts with consciousness, can perform apparent miracles, which are not miracles at all. Jesus, that's why he came here, teach us all this stuff, and he was one of those ones that was killed for doing so. They are the result of knowing how reality works. Miracles are the result of knowing how reality works. Body-mind perception has to call this the paranormal to compare it with its pea-sized sense of normal, downloaded from cradle to grave from mainstream everything, aka the Matrix, the system. Academics and mainstream scientists download this pea-sized version of reality more than anyone else and then tell us what we should and should not believe. It would be hilarious if it wasn't so tragic. Alright, y'all. I'm going to pause there because this chapter is really long because it's the foundation of everything else. So, if you like this, give me a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell because I upload randomly. So, yeah. Thanks for the love and the support, and I am excited to go into this further with y'all. Have a great day, night, whatever time it is. Much love, and ciao.